Hello and welcome to another episode of Truth Serum, your daily dose of truth, debunking BS realities and illusions that we have subscribed to. My name is Melissa Binkley and I'm your host. I'm a soul, life, and business strategist, and it's my mission to show you how to transform your life and business by bridging science and spirituality and debunking the current belief systems that have us all trapped, where you can then learn to walk the path of surrender and grace instead of fear and control. It is time to raise social, sustainable, conscious awareness and spirituality and create a conscious revolution. We need more of you, love leaders, healers, creatives, artists, light workers, coaches, speakers, to really live their purpose, tap into intuitive intelligence, and create global impact with their masterpiece message. And through connecting with amazing leaders like the one I have with us today, we'll reach 1 billion and create a shift in the world. And today we welcome our love leader and author, Jenna Edwards. Jenna is a speaker and a writer on a mission to empower us all to create the lives of our dreams. Growing up with severe contrast, parents playing in a rock band while living in a small conservative town of 2,000 people in rural Minnesota, left Jenna understanding the largeness of the world while feeling trapped by the smallness of her surroundings, until an exchange student came and spoke to her sixth grade class, changing her life forever. Realizing that there are options available to us to change our circumstances, Jenna made the choice then and there that she would get out and see the world and live the life that she dreamed of, and she has. She's lived in Thailand and Japan. She's traveled through Europe and made her dream move to Los Angeles. She's now my neighbor because I'm here too. And where she was created an award-winning career in the entertainment industry. She was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. How cool. And she is also a co-author in the book Women Who Inspire, that is released on September 26, 2017. And if you haven't gotten your copy yet, go out there and get it right now, because we know it's the #1 bestseller. I can see it already. Welcome, Jenna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. What a fun introduction. I love your mission.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Jenna, I want to know, what shot of truth serum do you want to deliver to our audience? What BS reality do you want to debunk or demystify today for us?
I want to talk about the fact that we can create the life we want. I think that we oftentimes feel trapped in our circumstances instead of understanding that we get to create the circumstances around us. And sometimes, life gets in the way and you just have to think, well, how can I get around this in order to create the life that I want?
Mm-hmm. So the truth about creating the life that you want, and it's not all what we've all thought or been taught in the past. We've kind of gotten into autopilot, right? We're into habitual patterns and experiences where we grow up in society being told that it's one way. And if you're anybody that's stepping into the spiritual path or into this place of grace and surrender, you start to realize that all of these things that are happening to you are really happening for you. So I love it. Today, we're going to talk about creating the life and the truth of how we create the life, the good and the bad.
Yes.
And I know this can be really hard to take sometimes because we don't recognize that some of the hardest experiences were created for us to have a transformation. Yes. So I would like to know, Jenna, what was the lesson or the trial, I call it the masterpiece, that brought you to your truth and to this shot of truth serum?
There's been quite a few, but I would have to say, I feel like there's one like every week. but that's only because I'm looking for them all the time now, because I love the lessons. I love the idea that when something is potentially in your way, what's the lesson and how can you kind of learn from that experience? But the biggest one, I think, for me, and this is what I read about in the book, is, I had thought I was living the life that I dreamed of. I was in Los Angeles. I was on Buffy. I, thought my career was going to take off. But I was working at a job that I knew in my heart was going to make me trapped. It wasn't going to allow me to pursue my career anymore. It was, but it was in the entertainment industry. So I had convinced myself that it was fine. But every day I would drive to this job thinking, if I get an audition, are they going to let me go? And one day I went down to the farmer's market in Santa Monica where they block off like 5 blocks to cars so that people can sell their produce. And I was buying oranges, and a car drove through the market, and the incident caused 10 people to lose their lives, and over 60 of us to get injured. And I was hit at over 60 miles an hour. And I suffered severe post-traumatic stress disorder, which meant for me that it manifested in my inability to talk without a stutter, and I couldn't read. And so essentially I couldn't audition. I couldn't follow my dreams. And it took 3.5 years before I could work again. And through that whole process, I found the self-development world and the spirituality world, and started to kind of look at, like the creation of the life that I wanted didn't look exactly the way I thought it would, but it was still what I wanted. I was still creating that life. And it just, because of the crash and because I was forced to figure out how to overcome PTSD, I got all these tools and this ability to, like, my truth serum was, I can overcome anything and I can create the life that I want. It just may look different than I think before it happens. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm really curious about this because I talk to a lot of people, and I notice that when we're on the path of transformation, or when we're creating the life that we want, what I see happen is 2 ways. Is we think that we're like, okay, things are going all right and everything, we're in this thing, but we have this nagging little feeling that is just not quite right. Right. Yep. And so, but the thing is the nagging feeling we don't realize is our intuition. It's something else showing us that we could take that way and go the path of grace and surrender. So instead, finally, yes, the universe gets tired of waiting, and it gives you what I call the 2x4. So you can have the path of transformation through grace and surrender, or you can have the path of the 2x4, which means you get hit over the head, whack, by the 2x4 of the universe. And yours was literally, you got hit by a car.
Right. I always say, like, if you're on the wrong path, the universe will throw a car at you. In my case,
right. It's like there's so many different ways and experiences of realizing that, but that we have this opportunity, but we have stopped listening.
Yes.
Intuitive intelligence. We've stopped listening to the voice of our higher self and the universe. We are all connected to a universal consciousness. I call it the God field. We're all connected to this God field where we all have an innate wisdom. But the thing is we've been taught not to pay attention to it. We've been taught that we've been taught
that we have no control over it.
Right. And therefore we're still creating our life, but we're not creating our life. We're creating our life from negative thoughts or thoughts that aren't in our soul's purpose and path because of that. I want to dive in a little bit into this whole thing about this story and the PTSD, because as you know, because we've spoke before with the Intuitive Intelligence Academy and the intuitive intelligence process that I created, it works with PTSD. It's a post-traumatic stress disorder, trauma healing process. And in your book, you say, it was almost a year after the crash, and I was still suffering daily from debilitating flashbacks that would trigger panic attacks that would cause me to pass out. I couldn't read. I stuttered when I talked. I forgot basic words. I couldn't function. I thought my life was over. And I don't think people really understand what the effect of PTSD, or because it's considered a disease that you can't see. Right, you can't see it. We don't know what it is. So when you were in the throes of, because you talk about this in the book, this idea of not wanting to get help and being in that space with the PTSD, how were you in that space creating your life at that time? Because I think this is really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Like, no matter creating good or bad, we're creating.
Yes.
And there was definitely stuff going on there for you.
And mine was, I would say, complete chaos. Like, I think it was just this, it's a good question. And I understand what you're trying to say, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it clearly, but it was like, every time I closed my eyes, someone died. And I was back daily at the crash thinking I was going to die.
And you were like dying daily yourself, right? Like your own personality, who you were, like you weren't doing
100%.
things, you weren't going outside, right? Like you had literally, you had died for yourself. So you were,
as dramatic as it sounds, it's 100% true. I was a shell of who I was. And that shell was just darkness and turmoil. And the worst part for me was I remembered what I was like before. And it's almost like you're stuck in this black swirling hole that you can't get out of, even though you know that you can get out of it. You just, like, when you're in it, you don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And when it happened to me, it was pretty new for a non-soldier to get this diagnosis. So there wasn't a whole lot of awareness around me, like with my family and my friends. Like, they didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. And I couldn't research because I couldn't read. I would literally read the same sentence over and over and it wouldn't register. And so I had doctors telling me what was going on, but none of them had experienced it. And so they weren't able to like grasp. And so it was like, honestly, if I could describe it, because I love swimming, is like being in the middle of a lake or an ocean and not being able to touch the ground and just having to keep going. And all you can think about is survival. And there's no, like, there were moments of, I can get out of this, but then they were so fast. And growing up, you grow up in a society that says you're making things up and you should get over it. And there were literally people who told me to get over it.
Yeah.
Like, I should be grateful because I'm alive. And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, I'm grateful, but that doesn't change the trauma that my body and my mind have been through. And I went through a similar experience with my PTSD. They didn't know, I mean, back then in 1994, 95, when after my rape and when I went through, I mean, they would find me in the closets with bite marks up and down my arm. I went straight into eating disorder. I was bulimic and anorexic. I mean, you name it. I was in that space, and at the same time, they started putting me on medications and things that, at that age, but nobody, I wasn't until years later that I was like, you had PTSD. You're like post-traumatic stress disorder, from having, reliving the experience of being trapped in a garage and raped, I mean, it was the same thing. So when I read your story, I was literally in tears reading it because I was like, nobody understands unless you've been through it. And I work with so many people that I get to see this experience and it is car crashes, the military, rape victims that they do. They literally are reliving, the body is reliving the experience. And
absolutely.
And there was a point for me, and I know that you say in your book too, that there was a point for you. There's a point for me where I was like, I fucking had enough. Like, I can't do it anymore. And you say I was broken and the only way I was going to heal myself was to stand up for myself. And I always call that's the, I call it the coming to Jesus moment, where you're like, I'm done. Like, I'm on the ground. I'm on my knees. I'm not taking another minute. I've got to figure this stuff out. So tell us a little bit about when you shifted into trying, because I believe that's the moment where we don't know that, but we're shifting to create a new life.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is yet.
And I think for me, it was when I stopped worrying about what everyone else was going to think of me. And what I mean by that is, and I realized that I could handle whatever was going to come next based on the decision that I was making. I think for me, I grew up with, my family has a history of addiction. And so when they said they wanted to put me on medication, I denied it. I said no for months and I needed it so badly. And because the way post-traumatic stress was described to me in the hospital was, we're animals and we have fight or flight. And if we're not, when we get in a situation where our life is threatened and we're not able to fight the chemicals out or run the chemicals out, they sit in our body and they mess with our chemistry. And when they explained that to me so logically, I was like, well, duh. So sometimes you need medication to balance the chemistry so that you can get your mind back so that you can then go forward and take care of yourself. And my moment was really drastic because I remember I finally said yes to taking sleeping medication because I hadn't slept for 8 months, and not sleeping for 8 months will really mess with you.
Oh yeah.
I
legitimately totally get it.
Right? Like I legitimately snapped. I went crazy. I ransacked my entire apartment because my husband had the I don't even know the word, the divine in thought to hide the medication. And I was going to take the entire bottle of sleeping pills, not because I wanted to die, but because I wanted to sleep so badly. And in that moment, like I remember I was sitting on this chair and like the sun was streaming in, and it was just this moment of clarity as I looked around my room going, everything was on the floor, everything, all the books off the bookshelf, all the couch cushions were in the middle. And I was like, what did you just do? And I called my husband and I was like, I need to go to the hospital. Like, I can't do this by myself. And that moment was me being like, F you society. There's something wrong with me. I'm not making it up. I might cry. like, screw you. You don't know what you're talking about, because I was so worried that I was going to end up on medication forever, and B, that people were going to judge me. And I wanted a career in the public eye. And I didn't want to have this like on my record or whatever. And I'm like, getting help is nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Period. And that was the moment I stood up for myself, and thank God I did, because I wouldn't be here and I certainly wouldn't be talking to you.
Well, and the empowering piece is now we know, like you recognize, and I recognize too, the ability to be vulnerable and share the story and actually show the breakdown, show where we've come from, is how you help others create their breakthroughs. Like I say, before every breakthrough, there's a breakdown.
Yeah.
You must break down old beliefs, ideas, and habits to break through to a new existence. And yet we have been taught in society to not show those. Don't show the breakdown. Don't show the crap, the stuff. And I have found
it's weak, but I'm like, that's the strongest you can be.
The opposite, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what is, Jenna, with this creating your life, you've got this, this truth serum, we can create our life. What is your mission in this life? What are you here to share on a deeper level with humanity through the work that you're doing?
I really want to be an example of someone who's creating their life. Like there are so many people talking about it that I just had this realization, like a breakthrough, huge breakthrough, where I was like, and that's why we're going on our trip. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to be an example, and I'm going to stop talking about it. Of like, I'm not, there are all these things in my life where I'm not the perfect, like my life doesn't look exactly the way I thought it was going to look. But then it does look exactly the way I thought it was going to look. Meaning, I am in LA being an actor. It's different than I thought it was going to be, because I thought I was going to be famous at 20, but maybe I'm famous at 50. Like, you know what I mean? And so I want to show people that just because you've set this goal for yourself doesn't mean that if you haven't achieved it in the time frame that you've set, doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I believe, and I agree with this 100%, because I always say the universe answers your prayers in 3 ways. Yes, but not now, or no, something better. But it's divine timing, and we only want the yes, and we need it right the hell now, right? But sometimes the universe says yes, but if I give it to you right now, you're not going to get all of the beauty and the and all the things that are going to go with it. Or we are so limited in our views that sometimes what we want the yes to, the universe says, no, wait, because I have something so much better in store for you. So we think it's a failure or a loss or something, and yet it's the something better. And I love that you say, I'm going to create a life, but I'm going to take the action on it and actually live it, where you're going on it. So for you guys that don't know, Jenna's getting ready, taking her family, and they're going on a 1-year road trip around the U.S. And I think it's absolutely incredible because most of you, if you've been following me, you know that in March of 2015, I got rid of everything that I owned and I went on the road and I went on a worldwide tour, and it was just September 5th of 2017. So literally, I think 30 months later that I finally decided to travel, to stop and actually have a permanent place again. I'm not going to stop traveling, but stop the constant traveling from place to place to place to place. So I love that you're living the action, living and creating the life, and doing that. So,
Thank you.
So exciting.
I am so excited. Tomorrow is my 40th birthday. And it's been so interesting. When my husband and I decided to do this trip, there were so many people who are like, oh, you're going to quit your job and go on the road. I'm like, no, we're going to work while we're on the road. And I started to realize that the people who do this type of road trip are either just out of college or high school, or they're retired.
Yeah.
And I'm like in the prime of my life. And I'm like, I want to be an example of someone who, I didn't do this when I was 20, but I want to do it now. And I don't want to wait till I'm 65. Right. And being that kind of, and I want to write a book about it. And I'm really excited about the Women Who Inspire chapter, because it kind of kicked me in the butt to like pursue my dream of writing.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it and I'm loving it. And my goal is to like kind of be like Jack Kerouac in a way. Even though I don't love his writing, I feel like he's my spirit animal. But like, I would love to go to, Ireland and work at a pub for 6 months and then write a book about a character who did that.
Oh yeah.
To be that example again, where people read the novel and they think, oh, I could never do that. And then they go to my blog and they say, oh, she actually did it.
Yeah.
And it's maybe there, and I'm going to share all the challenges. I'm blogging about all of it, sharing the challenges and the triumphs, and because you can't have adventure without challenge.
No, absolutely. My whole experience has been the same. And I'm actually writing a book. I have 2 in the process of my own. I'm already a best-selling author. This next one, Women Who Inspire, they're going to be a #1 bestseller, but I'm in the process of writing 2 of my own personal books that I am in contract working with agents, and we're going to get some cool stuff happening on that. And one of the books is about this experience of this spiritual awakening and my journey back to home, literally home within me, that turned into my next physical home. And so
that's so cool,
right? So it's the same thing. It's like, how do you live the lessons, you live the energy, you live it. And then what you must do as love leaders, what we're here to do, is share it with others so that they can take the same lessons and change their lives. Right. I mean,
I love that you said that. Yeah. It's so interesting because for a few years now, people have asked me, well, what do you do? What do you do? And I'm like, my goal in life is to do things and then share the experience. That's it. I just want to share, know?
Yeah.
And I think it's crucial. Like, think about what life would be like if people shared their struggles and their triumphs.
Yeah.
I feel like we have kind of a little epidemic right now about people only sharing their highlights reels. And then everyone's comparing to, their daily lives to everyone's highlights.
And is it really, like, I call it the smoke and mirrors of social media, right? Like, I'm like, it's a bunch of BS, smoke and mirrors. I want to do, you know what? That's a truth serum I want to do. A daily shot of truth serum on the BS of social media. It is. There's a lot of times where I see all this stuff on social media, and then because I work with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs around the world, they schedule themselves into my calendar, or they talk to one of my clarity coaches or something like that, and I get the real truth behind it all, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I understand where you're going with what you're trying to do, but how about we show up a little more authentically, right? Yeah. A little bit more in some aspects, because I think that if we were to share and cooperate in that kind of way, it's going to make a really powerful difference for society. Because right now we are in a conscious revolution, and the only way we're going to heal this freaking world, well, the world is on fire, is for us to show up in a way with love and start showing the vulnerable and sad parts and the bad parts, instead of the spiritual bypass of everything in my life is great.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, and that, like, when I was on my trip for the 4-month piece of this trip, I was going through some real major crap. Like, I had gone through a breakup. I had gone through, you know, I was missing family, all this stuff. And I was vulnerable about sharing that, because I didn't want, because everybody did see the adventure. They saw the cool stuff that was happening, the things I was manifesting. But I had to be honest about some of the times when I'm like hiking through the Himalayas, yelling at myself because I'm pissed about like what just happened. And I'm like arguing, you know, it's like, there's that piece of it, right?
Right. 100%. I think it's also really interesting because though the word authentic has gotten kind of skewed, I feel like when you really are being authentic, like for me, I am an optimist. I just had to accept it. People were always like, I feel like you're like, you don't see the bad things. And I'm like, no, I do. I just happen to see them differently, apparently, than most, because I look at them as like, okay, well, what is it telling us to shift our focus towards? You know, and so there's a part of me that feels a little guilty for being so positive and optimistic in this like horrible time in the world. And then I'm like, but if you do it and you really mean it, it's not
right. And it is. I don't think that's spiritual bypass. I really truly believe that, because I'm the same way. I actually have friends that their nickname for me is the fortune cookie.
nice.
They're like, wherever you crack you open, you got something good. It can be the worst thing in the world is happening. You're like, you have the one piece of wisdom and happiness that comes out of all of it, right?
I love it.
I think that that's needed and valuable, because it's a real view of it's saying, oh no, I know that there's crap going on. I see it, but I believe in the future of this world, and I see the other pieces that are happening. I believe in the conscious revolution. I believe that there is wisdom and gain happening right now, and you've got to look at those pieces of it. So I love that you're one of I'll call you the fortune cookie too now. So
I call it productive positivity.
I love that, productive positivity.
Right? If you can look at it and find a positive way of making some change happen, then it's productive.
Yeah.
If you're just hiding your head in the sand, that's not optimism or positivity. I don't think. It's just denial.
Yeah, I agree.
They're two totally different things in my world. But
yeah. So, Jenna, when we are trying to transform our lives, you know, many believe that it takes a complete overhaul. Like, oh, I've got to change everything in my life. Everything's different. And I believe that it takes like small steps, like one little step here and there. So what is one ritual, practice, or thing that you cannot live without? Like, if we want to give our audience the 5-minute Jenna solution, what's one thing that you can share with them that they can apply immediately?
It's okay. It's actually being honest with yourself about where you're at. First, if you see something that you don't like in your life, you need to identify it. And then you need to think, okay, well, how can I solve this? And not in 5 seconds, but in like a long-term solution. And that may take many, many steps. I call it break it down. So you see the problem, then you find a goal of a solution, and then you have to break it down into little tiny baby steps until you get there. Otherwise you're going to fail, because you're setting yourself up for failure. If you look at it like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds next month. Well, okay. Like, it's not realistic. But if you say, I want to lose 50 pounds, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to start with 1.
Right.
And then when you lose that 1, you then say, okay, now the next one.
And you want to release it and let it go, because we don't want to lose anything. And so as soon as you say lose, the mind's like, oh, hell no, I'm not losing shit.
Good point.
I'm going to let you go. It is time to depart from my life.
Well, I also would say I love that. And I've learned that I don't want to lose anything either. And so instead I've started to add. I've been like, okay, I want to lose or let go of 50 pounds. Just as an example. For me, it's become why.
I want to be able to do our exercise. You know, I want to be able to run with my kid, or I want to be able to.
Exactly. I want to feel better.
In my head. I don't know.
Right. And so, let me give you a really specific example.
Yeah.
With diet, right? So I was diagnosed with diabetes this year, and type 2, thank goodness. So it's going away. But it's only going away because I'm able to look at it as a way of like, I'm not treating the diabetes, I'm treating the organs that are causing the diabetes. And with those organs, I need to heal them. So instead of, and I've eliminated sugar, obviously, because I have to, and it's not good for you. But instead of being like, I'm not going to eat pasta, I'm thinking, what can I replace pasta with that's going to heal my body? So
like zucchini noodles. Have you done zucchini noodles?
Yeah. Love them.
Oh my God, it's the best, right?
And it's healing. Like any whole food that you can put in your body is healing, and it makes me feel better. And so it's this, the one trick that I've learned, if you will, call it a trick, is awareness. Like, what is it that I am doing to myself, my body, my mind, my heart, my soul, that is making me feel either good or bad? And the things that are making you feel good, add them. Continuously add them to your daily life. That's how you create the life that you want.
Awesome. Thank you. And so before we go to our last 2 questions of the day, Jenna, share with everybody how they can find you, get a hold of you, follow your blog for the next year, all that cool stuff. Because I can't wait to follow you and see all the cool stuff.
So I have a website called JennaEdwards.life. And the blog itself is called Life in a Teardrop. And the tagline is, you can live in a happy teardrop or a sad teardrop. It's your choice.
Life in a teardrop. Oh my God, I love that.
And it's because we are literally taking this road trip and we are living in a teardrop trailer.
Oh!
It's like 10 by 10, so tiny. It's going to be hilarious because I am such an LA brat.
Well,
I'm like, wait, we're going to do what? What am I doing?
You're going to do it. So my girlfriend has a Volkswagen Vanagon Westie.
Nice.
So top. And last year she took it for 4 months and traveled the Pacific Northwest. And I went and flew in and visited her in Alaska and stayed in it. And I mean, and it's maybe, I don't even know that it's a 10, it's not even a 10 by 10. It's even smaller. So, that it's the coolest experience and I would totally do it again. So it's going to be amazing. So I'm so excited for you. Teardrop. So everybody, JennaEdwards.life is where you're going to go. You're going to find her. You're going to follow her blog. You're going to hook up with her and see all of the amazing things that she's doing.
Yeah.
And
and all my social media links are there too.
And you can find her on everything else through her website. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So if you could do one thing in this world before you pass to the next realm, and adventure, or it doesn't have to be business related, it can be business related or mission related, but one thing that you want to do that you think everybody would be like, oh wow, that sounds really cool, or sounds really interesting, what would you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm doing it. I mean, I feel like this road trip is definitely one of them. And it's going to sound so cheesy, but I'm a cheese ball, so it's fine. I really would be so happy if I was on my deathbed knowing I left a legacy of creation, like an example of creation, and showing the world that, and that's going to look different for everybody. Like, what is it that you want your life to look like? Go do that. You can. You have the choice.
Yeah. So you led right into the last question, and it is, you are on your deathbed. You're 110 years old. Hi, you're 110 years old. And nobody can come visit you on your deathbed except one person. It's a reporter, and he's going to be writing your epilogue, your obituary. And he asks you, he says, if you had one truth that you could leave for all of your friends, family, and humanity to know, what would you say?
That you have choice.
That you have choice.
Yeah. That you get to create the life that you want to have, and that you can overcome the circumstances that surround you in order to do it. You just have to set the intention that you're going to make your life the feeling life that you want it to be.
And that, love leaders, is your Truth Serum, your daily shot of Truth Serum. You have choice. You can create the life that you want. Thank you so much, Jenna, for joining us today. I can't wait to follow your journey. And to all of you out there, wait for the next episode. We'll be back soon.